Hello, friend, wherever you are. Hope you're having a lovely day. If not, hope things improve for you. This is Vince with you on the RR Show, and we have got some solid stuff today. Let me look at this. I got the stories in front of me here, so... The last one, though, this is the last story you're going to hear in the episode. It's one that kind of made me like, huh, when I read the title. TIFU by making a stranger feed me. So that'll be coming up later in the episode. Yeah, enough of my babble. Let's get started. Posted by user The Adrenaline Addict. TIFU by telling a friend via voice that my workplace, McDonald's, was concealing info that staff was infected with COVID, and it was shared by my city's Facebook community group, and the manager found out about it. So I worked at McDonald's as a barista in 2021 for a few months during the height of COVID. And one day I got the memo via WhatsApp group that several of the staff was COVID positive. At this time, I was on leave in another city. As a precautionary measure, I had the bright idea of warning my rich friend not to visit McDonald's for a while due to the news I got because I knew he frequents that particular McDonald's chain where I work at. No big deal, I thought. I was just being thoughtful. Several days later, I got a text from my manager with a forwarded voice text asking if the person speaking on the voice text is me. Confused, I played the audio and it was my voice, clear as day, warning my friends about our staff being COVID positive, which was apparently forwarded 3,000 plus times via WhatsApp. I immediately connected the dots and it became clear to me that my rich friend had forwarded the voice text to his family members, which had a lot of connections, which caused a forwarding chain reaction throughout my entire city's community via WhatsApp and Facebook. If you're thinking I'm exaggerating, my city has a dedicated Facebook community group with 300 plus members. So our city's community is pretty well connected, and everyone is somehow related to someone or knows someone. This is where I realize again how out of control the situation has gotten, because not only was it circulated on WhatsApp, somebody screenshotted the recorded WhatsApp message and posted it on the Facebook community group with an ambulance pic next to it, which had no connections to my voice text. So now everyone's assuming McDonald's staff at the chain I'm working at is in some kind of critical condition resulting from COVID. That everyone started to steer clear of that chain for a whole week. So I accepted my fate and admitted to my manager, and she flipped out and was scolding me over and over for revealing company secrets to the public without consent and causing trouble to the chain. I apologized and told her it was an accident, and I never meant for my voice text to spread like this. She didn't believe me and assumed I was some kind of traitor, as well as most of my other colleagues as well. At this point, I decided that my reputation cannot be salvaged, and I decided to quit on the spot because I don't really want to deal with any of this crap that my friend caused. I don't know if I should be pissed at my friend or not, because technically what he did was not wrong. I just didn't foresee the outcome. Posted by user HWasDoll. Under the subreddit, of course, a big TIFU episode today. TIFU, r/TIFU. The story is TIFU by asking my roommate about the roundtable. This story is a little bit older, but I thought it might be good to go here. My roommate and I bought new phones on the same day. Same model, iPhone 15 for context on later events. Same day, matching cases. We hadn't done this just for fun. We both needed new phones. But call it an expensive friendship gift. We've been best friends for 18 years and thought it would be a fun little thing to share. Well, my phone quickly started acting bizarre. I noticed it would randomly revert back to light mode. I had dark mode/light mode switch in my control center and always kept it on dark mode. However, I noticed occasionally when I opened my phone again that it would have reverted back to light mode. This was odd, but an issue I could live with. Of course, initially I wondered if it was clumsy, potentially misclicking and changing it to light mode, as this was an issue I had with my old phone. But it would happen when I was extra careful. I would make sure it was in dark mode before I turned off my phone, leaving my phone in the bathroom with me while I was in the shower, and then find it on light mode once I got back into the bedroom. I asked my roommate about it. He said he didn't know. He said he only ever uses my phone to change what's playing on the speaker if I'm playing music for the two of us and a song comes on that he's not in the mood for, which I'm aware of him doing and it doesn't bother me. I forget about it and just decide it's a weird quirk my new phone is gonna have that I have to cope with. At some point after my shower, I noticed my phone was on light mode again, but it was open in Instagram. I found messages open with my brother and found myself incredibly confused. These weren't things I remembered messaging him, and the conversation was roughly 10 minutes long and took place as soon as I got out of the shower according to the timestamps. Now, I've never had the greatest memory. It's been a flaw of mine for a long time. But I also have the double whammy diagnosis of PTSD and head trauma-induced retrograde amnesia, so that's expected. But this sort of memory gap was a little bizarre even for me. Usually, I would have the memory, even if distant, if it was ever so slightly present. I decide to mention this to my roommate, bringing up the new direct messages to him. He says it's bizarre, but reminds me that PTSD leads to disassociation and he wouldn't worry too much about it. I laughed it off and agreed before changing my phone back to dark mode. I said something offhandedly like, I guess I'll consult the roundtable to see who's a light mode user. My roommate stared at me like I was absolutely insane, which is new considering my roommate is probably 2 phone calls away from a psych ward. I kept messaging my brother, continuing the conversation I had no recollection of, until my roommate said, the roundtable? I told him, oh, you probably call it something else. You know, the guys you gotta ask when you forget something. When he still seemed confused, I proceeded to explain the following. Since I was quite young, I've had accounts in my head that I refer to when I have memory blackouts. Often, they'll be standing around a table in my head, and I'll be at the head of the table. I'll ask them who remembers what, and the 3 people in my head will own up and explain what happened. Sometimes they'll tell me they tuned in briefly to help me out. So I explained this to him, and he looked very serious, essentially dead quiet. Which is bizarre considering if he was in a boy group, he'd be the main yapper. He spoke quietly, an almost disbelieving smile on his face as he turned fully to me, saying, I want you to repeat all those words to your therapist and see what she says to you. I stayed pretty much in denial, figured if the roundtable really was that bizarre, then it was probably something easily explainable. Trauma, coping mechanism, or looped into my autism diagnosis from a couple of years ago. When I was younger, the concept of being mentally ill was pushed away from me by my mother as she wanted me to be her highest performing child. When she was presented with the symptoms of mental illness or whatnot in myself, she would often excuse it as my overactive imagination. So that's how I started dismissing it as well. My therapy appointment wasn't for another few days, but I started losing more time. The people at the roundtable could still explain it, but it became slowly more confusing and slightly scary. I was forgetting conversations, getting unhappy about it, and obviously overthinking a lot. My sleep med stopped working as well, and I was waking up to hilarious jokes on my Instagram story that my friends were laughing about in my DMs that I couldn't even remember. Oh, you don't remember? Was this something I started hearing more than I liked? Because I became more aware of how this affected me when I was younger. Recalling times when I lost days of memory. Days where my friends noted drastically different personality changes that I couldn't even recall. So the following Thursday rolled around, 2:45, and I'm practically busting my poor therapist's door down with eye bags made by Prada, and the second energy drink of the day in my shaking fist and said, my roommate said if I don't tell you this, he'll kill me. We started talking and ended up going half an hour over time, covering all this on paper and whiteboard as I vented to her about everything happening. I walked out of that appointment with a list of psychiatrists and a request to my general practitioner for a referral for a dissociative identity disorder assessment. That was 5 months ago. Today, I know when my phone switches to light mode or downloads a game I don't remember, it's not my horrific memory or my phone being messed up. It's one of my alters, and they just want to read a little easier. If you stayed this long, thanks for reading. I hope the turn took you off guard as much as it took me off guard 5 months ago. Figuring this out at 20 feels weird, but my alters and I are learning to navigate, and I've found comfort in learning more about my alters too. There's a couple more than 4 of us, turns out, and I just hadn't met the other 2 yet. Until next time, remember to question everything, reader. Our next story is posted by user Dr. Dringle on r/TIFU, of course. The story title is TIFU by Making a Dog Think I Was Having a PTSD Episode. This happened a while back, but thought of it while swapping stories with colleagues today, so decided to share it here as well. It's hardly severe, but it still makes me laugh in retrospect. I'm a veterinarian, and back during COVID, we were offering curbside appointments to anyone that didn't want to come into the building. I was doing a routine yearly wellness on a massive but incredibly sweet Great Pyrenees, alone in a consult room. The owner was in the car, and my tech was getting a dental ready for me elsewhere. He happily let me examine him and give him vaccines. But when I went to toss my sharps, one of the needles bounced off the box and rolled into the corner and under the console table. I got on my hands and knees to grab the needle and immediately felt him plant a huge paw into my side. Gently but firmly, he pushed me over and then proceeded to lie on top of me and pin me down. Not knowing what was going on, I attempted to push him off me, but he very insistently resisted any attempts to get him off me. He wasn't being aggressive in the slightest, but I didn't want to provoke him into doing anything that might cause him to become so. So I just sat there, stuck under this dog for several minutes, until the tech came in to check what was taking me so long. I think the first words out of my mouth were, just please get the owner. Long story short, apparently the owner's husband was a veterinarian who suffered PTSD flashbacks, and a common behavior he would exhibit during them was to try to crawl into or under things. This dog was his therapy dog and had been trained to restrain him during these behaviors until he was cognizant enough to give the dog a specific command word. When I went for the needle, he thought I was in distress and just did what he'd been trained to do. Not knowing this command word, the dog was just content to lie on me indefinitely. All in all, it was pretty harmless and funny after the fact, but I was definitely panicking for a few minutes with a 70-kilogram dog pinning me down. By the way, 70 kilograms converted to pounds is about 150 pounds, so quite a heavy dog. Another TIFU posted by user RebTech, TIFU by making a stranger feed me. So this was a few months ago, but I think I've only just gotten over the embarrassment. It was a 25-year-old female, second anniversary with my partner. We didn't have much money at the time, so we planned to have an evening just watching the sunset together. I wanted to make it extra special, so I planned a romantic picnic with a lovely bottle of wine, lemon cake, and fresh raspberries. It got to our anniversary and disaster struck. The raspberries I had bought the day before were not fresh at all. In fact, they were rather moldy. So I went back to the local greengrocers to return them. The man behind the counter, let's call him Alec, was more than happy to do so and let me pick out another box. So far, so good, right? Well, what you gotta know about me is that I'm an incredibly anxious person. On top of that, my flight or fight response, which happens to be quite a lot, is awful. I once saw a guy getting beaten up with a crowbar and tried to ask him politely if he needed help. But that's a story for another time. Anyway, I was already anxious because I felt like I was being really inconvenient by asking to return these raspberries. On top of that, I kind of knew Alec, and he always made me feel really uncomfortable when I was there. He's a bit weird around women. This added up to me being very anxious. So I take the new raspberries up to the counter, and Alec asks me if they're up to my standard. He's kind of being weird and flirty, and I'm just trying to take the raspberries and go, but he opens up the box and holds one out for me to try. Now, a normal person in a situation would just pick it up, right? But my anxious brain was in fight or flight mode, and I acted on instinct alone. And my instincts are terrible. So I lean down, eat the raspberry out of this man's hands, grazing his fingers with my lips as I go. As I realize what I've done, I look at him, knowing that he must be thinking one of three things. 1, I'm some kind of sex pest. 2, I'm a hand-licking weirdo. Or 3, that I'm into him. I'm not thrilled with any of these, but anyway, he clearly goes for option 3 because he gives me a big grin and offers me another. I laugh, grab my raspberries, and run. Well, now he's even more flirty with me, and I don't know how to explain this to him, so I guess I just have to move to a new country. We really appreciate you being with us on today's show. The RR Show is a production of Evergreen Podcast and Wessler Media. Now, if you'd be so kind, follow or subscribe to the show if you haven't already. And if you also haven't done already, please leave us a very nice 5-star review. Thanks, Mom. Also, for more, you can visit rrshow.com. That's rrshow.com. I'm your host, Vince. My producer, Kevin, thank you. We'll see you next time.